Hey,
What's going on, Joshua?
hello. Um, I'm just making the final build right now
Awesome. I'm
and uploading that.
just getting Blender started. I just uninstalled the old version.
And the build bot doesn't work.
Yo, yo.
What's going on, Corza?
Hey,
Not much. Excited.
Me too. They're just working on getting the build bot to behave. And we'll be ready to load the release candidate.
yeah, I think I might have to do it manually. I don't know.
Are you doing it through the add-on?
Sorry?
What's the go with the build bot?
I don't know what like the build bot's supposed to like take the add-on from GitHub and just put a zip file in the channel, but it's just not working right now. I don't know. Finn wrote that, so
Yep, we blame Finn. Is Finn going to join us today?
Maybe. Yeah, I think so.
Okay, cool. This is going to be a full packed house. Yeah, so just, I guess that's a good disclaimer to make since I'm recording this for the YouTube channel and for anybody who can't make it today. This is a release candidate, so this isn't necessarily the full released add-on. This is released to public for official beta testing, but it should be mostly working. If there are bugs, then they'll try to fix whatever is coming up before it release. Is that correct, Joshua?
That is correct. Yes.
So,
The snippets aren't in yet. We focused on the documentation of the notes instead, and it took longer than expected. But yeah, we'll of course add those back for the release, which should be in a couple of days, hopefully, depending on how many bugs are still people still find, but in general it should be pretty much a final version.
okay, cool. Is the documentation ready to be shared too? Would you like me to give a link to that?
Documentation is done, yes.
Okay. I'll just post another reminder on the general chat, because it will be very helpful for people to have for this public release candidate, I think.
Absolutely. Okay, so the build ready, so let me just upload that to Blender Market and Gumroad, and then we're good to get started.
Okay, so we're going to be going to the official stores wherever we bought Serpens, is that correct?
Yep, and I just put it in the beta testing channel, so you can just get it from there.
Okay. Well, I'll show people how to grab it from the other place if that's okay.
Sure.
All right. Oh, darn captchas. Alright, so for Blender Market, I just go to my orders and type in Serpens on my search. Oh no! There we are, Serpens. So on the Blender Market, go find your orders page, go to Serpens, and you can click on the Serpens 3 release candidate to download. And then you can search on Gumroad and do the same thing basically. You just go to My Orders and you can download it. Or you can buy it. Grab version 2 or version 3's release candidate. Alright, I've got the download. Let's go ahead and install it. So typical rinse and repeat. If you have the current versions of Serpens installed, you need to uninstall them, close Blender, open Blender back up, and then now you can do a reinstall. So I've already done that first part. Cool, I'm ready.
Okay.
How's everybody else doing? We can give people a minute too.
Yeah, we can just wait a minute. And I think I would start by sharing my screen as well and then going over a couple of things and then we can move on.
Okay. Can I put your screen on my recording?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, cool. Oh, Finn joined in. Welcome, Finn. Okay, I think I got your screen on my recording now.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah, then let's get going. Yeah, so the plan is just kind of to show a couple of the new things. You can download the release candidate right now, so it should be on Blender Market and on Gumroad. Yeah, so it's a release candidate, so there might still be some issues. The goal is to find those in the next days. If you want to test it for that, that'd be great. If you find anything, let us know. We had a couple of people, including like big thanks to blanchsb and Corza, who are in here for testing the last, I don't know, it's been a while. Yeah, we found quite a few issues and got those fixed, so it should be pretty stable now, but if you still find anything, let us know and we'll fix that to then release the final version. Yeah, and like from what's not complete yet, it's mainly just the snippets, so snippets aren't in yet for this version, but will be in the final release then. And yeah, that's basically it. The run script node is a little limited, but that's in the documentation, which we'll also go over in a second. Yeah, so yeah, let's just show a couple of things. So this is Blender, I think 3.12. So we're now definitely on Blender 3 and up. So no older versions than 3.0. And you just install the edit normally, of course. The preferences are still pretty similar, but changed in a couple of places. So we can still check for updates. We have the compile option with Shift R, but you notice that's force compile now, and not the normal compile. We'll go over that as well. You can press F1 when you have a node selected to open the node documentation. And you can add a property node with Shift V. We'll go over that too. And you can enable the error file here, so this will keep the text file if an error happens. Yeah. Then for the marketplace, you can still load snippets and add-ons and so on. We have the old list in here, and you can filter to only show ones that were made with Serpens 3, so that's nothing yet. We're still making the export option for that, and snippets, snippets, packages, and add-ons, all same thing. So that's the preferences, still pretty much the same. Last thing here is the custom tab. That's where your preferences will go. So if you're creating preferences with the preferences node, that will no longer make an add-on here in the preferences, but those will show up in here. That's just a small difference. Then let's jump into the editor. So still same names and everything. Clicking new to create a new add-on, you'll notice there's no longer a pop-up here. The difference is that we now have one add-on per blend file. So before you were able to create multiple add-ons, now it's one add-on per blend file just to keep it a little cleaner. And you can still create multiple node trees here, of course. Same as before. So for your interface here, it's pretty similar in mostly. Up here we still have the tutorial. That's also still a work in progress, but we got the full documentation now, and that's a lot more in depth than this tutorial. So we'll make this as a starting point, but the full tutorial, including no documentation, is here. So you can press this button to open that up, or go up here at any point and open it from here. Then this is kind of the big new thing, the Blend Data browser. So we pretty much completely changed how Blend Data works in this version. We'll go over this a bit, because this might look a bit intimidating at first, but it will make it a lot easier, and I think the beta testers can maybe attest to that it is actually easier and better to use than it was before. At least I hope so.
Yeah, it was really confusing when we first came to use it, and I think it took like 3 sessions to start getting used to it. But yeah, finding things, once you know how to go and search through it and find what you want, it's much easier than creating 10 nodes to find your data.
Yep.
Yeah, it's much more efficient.
Yeah.
Good team. We'll go over that a bit. It's definitely something that you'll have to get used to, just because it's so different from how Serpens 2 worked. Then you have the console up here, so just a quick option to get that and to clear the console as well here. You can enable the Python tooltips here, so when you hover over options, you will see the Python path, same with properties here. That's just a useful thing. You have the option to insert socket buttons here. That's on the nodes with dynamic sockets. You can just enable this to insert sockets, just like before. Then to the right here, we have the force compile button and the unregister button. Those might look like the ones we had before, but you will probably not use those at all, because we have autocompile now. So before, this was an option to enable autocompile, and it was kind of slow and kind of buggy. Now it's the default, because we basically rewrote the entire way that the add-on is built to make this work as efficient as possible. And you'll see in the top right here the time it takes to build your add-on. And for more details, you can go into the settings here and enable this debug compile time option, which will, when you change settings here, show you exactly which step of the add-on build took the most time. So if your add-on is starting to get slow, then please let us know as well. We had, I think, one major issue coming up in the beta testing with the properties, which slowed it down a whole bunch, but that's resolved now, and we really there really weren't any slowdowns since then. So this should be pretty much real time and not noticeable. So you can, just like before, pick a place here, but I'm not pressing Shift R or pressing this button here. The panel just sort of appears. and we can start adding labels and connecting those here, and you'll see it updating in real time. So that's new, and yeah, probably maybe the biggest update. It should just speed up your workflow a bit and make it a bit nicer to work with. All right. So that's the header. On the end panel here, we have the node tree still same as before. We have the variables, still pretty much the same here. Then we have properties. There's a couple of things that are different with the properties. So the ones we had before are pretty much the same, except for the enum property, which can now have dynamic items. Maybe we'll go over that if we have time. We spend a bit of time in one of the previous streams if you want to check that out. And we also have a bunch of explanations on that in the documentation. But yeah, like basically you can, just like before, add items here manually, or you can check dynamic items and then basically put in a function or something to generate these items from basically any data you want. So that's new with enum properties, and then we have 3 new property types here. We have pointer properties, collection properties, and group properties, and we'll go over at least some of these later on as well. All right. Then assets are still pretty much the same. You can also have folders as assets now. So yeah, that might be useful for some cases. Add-on, still the same here. Extensions, this is where you install packages and snippets now. So before that was kind of hidden in the preferences. Now it's right in here, so you can get packages. We'll just open the preferences here and take you to the marketplace where you can find packages once people start creating those. We'll go over the docs for that as well. And same with snippets. As I said before, we don't have them in the release candidate yet, but we'll add those back. And then finally, on the settings, we have compile on load, which as before will compile your file, your add-on when you load this file. And it's there's really not a good reason to turn this off, I guess, especially with this with Serpens 3. If you do turn this off, when you start back up, you will either have to kind of change one of the settings on your node to trigger trigger a compile, or use this button up here. And I guess I can talk a bit about the force compile option. So if you're force compiling the add-on, this will basically regenerate the code for all of the nodes. And if you just edit the setting normally, this will use the previous cached code basically. So we have a new option here to debug the nodes, which will basically just show you the generated code right on the nodes. That can also be useful just to kind of get a feeling for how that code looks. But it's mainly for us, but can also be useful for you if you're interested in that.
So I'm going to interrupt real quick.
Sure.
This is probably one of the coolest features I've found with Serpens, because this shows you the Python generated. On the far left panel, it has everything that's contained from the right built into it. So the label information is already included in there. As you add more things like the rows, they show up on the left as well. In a lot of ways, this teaches you how the Python works in Blender. So it also helps a lot with troubleshooting.
Yeah, definitely. And we have this option. So this is kind of the code that is stored on the nodes, and the normal compile just takes this code. And this option here will basically rebuild everything. So if you have a large add-on, this might take a bit. So that's why you're not really using that, and this should pretty much stay on. Debug sockets, same thing. It's just basically showing the data that is on these sockets. So if I select a different icon here, you can see the number changing. Or if I type in a different text, you can see the data that is passed in between these sockets. Debug properties will show the property code here on the properties. And debug compile time, we talked about before, and keep code was in the preferences before. You can now turn this on per add-on. So when I change something here, you will see the code log in the scripting workspace or just in the text editor here. So this will log the file, and you can see the exported code here.
And that's not the same as the exported add-on, right? There are some things that will change when you save the add-on.
Right. Yeah. So for example, the preferences node, as I said, like this is shown in the Serpens preferences now. So when I add a preferences node and then like connect a label to this, you will see it doesn't show up under your add-on's name anymore, but under the Serpens preferences, under the custom tab, and everything below here will show up in your add-on. And of course, this is not like this on export. This is just during development. But when you export your add-on and install it, it will be shown under your add-on. So there's some differences in how the code looks during development and when it's exported.
Cool.
Okay. Yeah, and to anyone else, like if you have questions at any point, just type in the chat. I think Finn is taking care of those, or just speak up. We happy to answer any questions. That's why we're here. Okay. Yeah, then one other difference that might be interesting is that the custom icons, there's no longer a panel here, but we have an icons node now. So you can open up images here as before in here, or use a path as well. So if you want to have a more kind of dynamic way to get icons or just load icons from some image, you can just enter the path here or connect the path from somewhere and then just pass in the icon here. So that's the way to create custom icons now. And yes, snippets are planned for the 3.0 release, so they will be in the release, not in the release candidate just yet, but they'll be back. Okay. So I guess from here we can talk a bit about blend data if there's no other. Well, actually, let's go over the documentation a little bit. That's this guy. All right, so the documentation is. So a lot of people have been requesting like a bit more detailed documentation or documentation on the individual nodes. So that's what we did. You can find this link either in Blender, like just by clicking on here, or selecting a node and pressing F1 for help. Or I think Finn posted it in the No Mic channel as well if you want to take a look at it now. But generally, like the documentation, this is the main page here. You can find a short text here on kind of the differences between Serpens 2 and 3. Here's a quick guide on just how to install it, and some links, and then the main part of the documentation. So we have a bunch of different chapters on just getting started on every aspect, every topic in here. So just like general overviews and more in-depth things like on the blend data. So this is probably the most important one to read up on because it's the biggest difference. Again, we'll go over that in a second in Blender as well. But this kind of explains everything, and you should be able to get most of the information you need from here. Properties are probably interesting as well because of the new property types. And I think we also have some examples on dynamic enum items here. Yes, that's the EasyBPY changed a little bit as well. So you no longer need to select the Python file. This will just happen automatically. So basically, to use EasyBPY in a Serpens add-on, you just start using it in your script. You have to import it again. So just as you normally do with like when you're writing EasyBPY scripts, you just import EasyBPY at the top, just basically following the normal EasyBPY documentation. Nothing special about that anymore. Yeah. So that's kind of the main part of the documentation here, going over all the different areas. And then we have the notes. So this is kind of a long table of notes. This took a while. I think we have 117 notes.
It's
or
huge. I went
something.
through a lot of them yesterday just to look around. You guys did a good job.
Yeah.
It's not like it's going to tell
Yeah,
you how to
it's-
use them in every way, shape, and form, but it is a good general
Right.
overview. Hey, this is what this node does.
Yeah. So yeah, I think we have 171 nodes or something. The blend data nodes are kind of what is that? The categories. Blend data, yeah, other blend data. It's just because all the blend data nodes are kind of similar, but they're pretty much the same. It's just a different name in here, so we didn't put those here individually. But yeah, every other node is in here, so you can just like look through these when you find something that you're interested in, or if you want to get like a feeling for what a node does. Just go in here, and this will give you a short explanation of how to use it. For some nodes, it will also give you like quick examples.
Yeah, if you've never been to the Notion page, one important thing to note, if you go back to the nodes, Joshua, because there are so many nodes in here, you may have to scroll down to the bottom and click on load more if your pop-up window doesn't show up properly. Because there's just so many nodes to cover.
Yeah, if you're looking for a specific one, you can also filter here.
Good call. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the nodes part. So this should be a pretty useful resource to get an idea of of some of the new nodes. We have some simple ones like the node ID name, because people have been working with nodes quite a lot. So we now have a node where you can select a node by name. So yeah, if I'm looking for the principal BSDF, I can just find that here, and we'll put out the ID name, which you can use to create nodes in the shader editor, stuff like that. We just have a couple of nodes like that, which are new, but those can all be found in here. And then lastly on the documentation, we have the packages. So if you know Python and you want to make a bit more use of it with Serpens, you can start writing your own nodes. And those are actually like proper nodes, like you have all the functionality that we can have with nodes. But it does, of course, involve a little bit more scripting. And we have the documentation on how to get set up on that. And all the functions on how to then actually script one of those nodes. You can look into that if you're interested in that. But basically the idea is that you can write your own nodes, you can package them together, and then distribute, maybe sell if you want a node package that has some functionality that isn't in Serpens yet. All right. So that's basically it for the documentation. There's quite a lot to go through here. So if you want to get an idea of what's new or how to use something, just go in here and check it out. Okay. All right, then I think we can.
Should we dive in?
Go into blend data a bit, yeah. Okay, so maybe looking at the documentation, because we have that somewhere. I think I shared that yesterday as well, but if I look at the Blender property node, if Notion decides to load it. Where it is. We have too many nodes. I think it's in there. Blender property, there we go. Okay, so this is basically all you will need to access blend data from now on. So before we had a bunch of different nodes to access your data. Stuff like get data, set data, get collections, get blend data, all that stuff is now just one node, just Blender property. And yeah, this is kind of the fun example where before to get a value of a node socket, you had to start from copying the property into a get property node, then find this color node socket by going from the active object to the active material on that, to the node tree, to the nodes, to the specific node, to the inputs, to that input, and then you could plug it in and get the value. So it was quite a big step. And now the way you do it is you right-click the property, get Serpens property, you, if my keyboard works, you add a Blender property node, press paste, and there you go. And this output is the color.
You just got rid of like 3 of my YouTube videos with that one that one fix.
Yeah. So yeah, and then to display it, basically we just add a display property node, connect that to our panel. Let's add that in the material here to see it, and then connect the property here, and there you go. That's it.
That's so cool.
So that's better. I would say that's a little better than it was before. Right. And you can, these inputs here, we can, I guess, let's just go over those now. So we have on these properties, let's take one that's a little simpler, like the name. And by the way, this is where this shortcut comes in that we saw earlier in the preferences. Shift V is by default. It basically just adds a Blender property node and pastes the property in. So instead of having to search for the Blender property node and then clicking paste, you can just press Shift V after you copy the property and it will add the node. So this is for the object name. So you can see we have the output for the name property and the output for the name value. So we use the property output, which is a blend data output as we had before, to, for example, display the property. So you no longer paste it right onto the display property node. You now connect the property to it. And yeah, this goes for all properties. So you can just connect them to a display property, or same with set property as well. So to set the name, we would connect the property we want to set, and then we can plug in the value here of what we want to set it to. So this is kind of what the first output here is for. And then the second output is the actual value. So if I would add in a label here, then I could, let's see, add to panel here, and just put that here. If I plug in this name now, you can see cube. Like this is the actual string output, and this is the property output you use to display the property. All right. You'll also see this drop down on here, which basically has all the property types, or the types this socket can have. And depending on what property you copy, this will be a different type by default. So if you copy a property from the UI or the blend data browser, which we're going to in a second, this will be set automatically. If you copy a data path manually, which is possible, but not too important for most people probably, you will have to set this manually, and on some inputs you will have to set this as well. So for example, on set property again, if I wanted to set the name, I would have to change this from data to string, because the value we want to set the name to is a string. And we just need this to be able to convert data. So if, for example, you plug this value output into the label, and this would be a number or something, and then you plug the number into the string input, then Serpens would have to convert it from a number to a string. And in order to get the correct types, you need to set what this node actually should return. Yeah, so this should be set by default, but on some nodes you will have to set it manually.
Yeah, so use that rotation Euler as the example, right? Because it's outputting a vector. And so if that were to go into the label, what would the user have to do?
Right, so if you connect this in here, so I just copied the property here, so it was set automatically to a float vector. And I can just connect this up, and you'll see it's converted automatically to a string, because this label is a string input. But if I set this to string because I want to put it in a string, then it won't display anything, and it will actually throw an error. So you will see something like whatever expected a string type, not Euler. And yeah, so make sure this value is set to the type that is actually coming out here. So for the rotation, this is a float and this is a vector. So yeah, set this to float vector. Yeah, that's kind of the process with that. And yeah, those are the two outputs you will get on the Blender property node. And then we have the inputs, which basically replace all the get blend data collection and so on we had before, and put them right on the node here. So in this case, we copied the object name, and if you hover over that with the tooltips here enabled, you will see it says bpy.data.objects_cube.name. So bpy_data_objects_cube is getting this one cube, and then name is the name property on that. And we can see the name is the output here, and we have the cube from our objects. So we could enter a different name here. So if I plug this in here and I change this to light, because I have one object named light in my scene, then this will display the name. This is not really useful because I'm putting in the name to get the name. So I could change the way I'm indexing these objects. So if you remember from Serpens 2, we had the index collection property, or it might have been called a little different, but it's doing the same thing, where you can basically use an index, which is either a number or a name, to get one item from that collection. And this is the same thing that this input does, so name or index. You can either choose to get an object with its name or by its index. So if I change this to index, you will see you can put in a number in here now, and now it says camera. If I put this to 1, it says cube. So it's basically going through that list of objects here, and you can get one object name that way. And the last option we have with these sockets is property, and this will change the input to a blend data input, which then lets you plug in an object. So we could use the objects node and take, like, for example, the active object, plug that in here, and get this property from that object this way. Or we could do something like we have a for loop, like a for interface loop here, and we want to go over a collection of objects, let's say all objects in our scene or in our file. And then for every object in that file, we want to draw this label, and we want to get this label from this object. So we plugged in all objects, so this item output will be the current object in this iteration of the loop, basically. And we can use this to get the name from this particular object. So this is where you would use the property input to basically give it one item of this collection which isn't defined by name or index. And you can then plug in the label here, the value here, and you see it shows the label for all objects. So that's what the property option is for. But one nice thing about that as well is that we have defaults for that now. So if you remember from Serpens 2, you would use the scene context node a bunch, like very often, because you basically had to plug it in every property that you created. And now we just use a default, like we use the active scene by default, and same with objects. So for an object's input, we use the active object by default. So you will see here in brackets using active if a default exists, or for some things, like I think on the material, if I copy this again, you will see if I change this materials input to property, you will see no data because there's no, we don't have any default for a materials input. I guess we could maybe add that to use the active material of the active object. But you would have to plug something in here. So if it says no data, you will have to plug something in here. So we could take the materials node and plug in the active material here, and then display that here, and it will display the float here. I think this actually has the wrong type assigned by default because this is a color and not a normal float vector. I can fix that as well.
Ooh, good catch.
First bug found, I guess.
First bug.
Yay. But yeah, that's also like you will see if I just change this to float, it will still work, it will show you something, but if I change it to float vector, it will actually convert it properly to a string and show you the numbers. Yeah, so that's why you want to convert that. Yeah. All right.
So I know that I'm used to this now, but when you change over to the index instead of the object name or the property, the socket turns green. And in Serpens 2, green sockets were strings.
Right.
And everything has changed colors in Serpens 3. Why is that, Joshua?
That's true. Well, let me tell you. Yeah, so basically geometry nodes happened, and they added a bunch of new socket types, and we just kind of wanted to make sure we are in line with that. So the integer socket in geometry nodes is green, so our integer socket is now green. Same thing with, like, we had an and/or node for booleans in geometry nodes that is called boolean math. So in Serpens this is now also boolean math.
Yay, we're getting consistent, right?
Yeah, so as they are adding new socket types and so on, we adjust to make the back and forth a bit smoother. It might be, a bit confusing at first when jumping from Serpens 2 to 3, but it's more in line with Blender, so it makes sense to keep it this way.
Well, now you don't have to worry about what your colors are in both of the node graphs, right? I mean, everything's a little more user-friendly in the long run. It's going to screw us up a lot when we transition, but if you're working with geometry nodes already, you're actually going to really love that this is all changed to be in line.
Yep, should be. Yeah, that's the thing with most of these. Like, it will be a pain to rebuild old add-ons. It will be a pain to get used to the new blend data and probably the new sockets, but in the long term, it will be a lot better. Yeah. All right.
And if you're already developing add-ons, you already know that rewriting code is going to be a part of your life. So just get used to it.
3 times with Serpens. So
that's right.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, so that's the Blender property node. You can copy properties from here, but as you probably have figured out before with Serpens 2, not all properties can be copied. There will always be some that you have to get some other way.
Like floating menus, like add node menu, if you were to do that and try to copy.
I mean, that's operators, but that's actually fixed now. You can
you fixed that?
copy
No way.
the operator from here.
Okay, never mind, I'm a liar. He's got it working. Oh yeah,
So
those are
floating
operators, I'm
menus
sorry.
are no longer a problem. Like, those should also be fine. Like, if you go in here and
Oh,
copy
that's
this,
so
this also
cool.
works. Yeah, but there are always like special properties like buried in, I don't know, the graph editor or the outliner is often a problem, which we can't copy, and you have to get those some other way. and this other way is the Blend Data browser. So yeah, this might look very intimidating because there's a lot of things happening here, but basically it's doing what you see when you switch the outliner from view layer to the data API. So this shows you an overview over everything in your file. Like if you expand the objects here, you will see the objects, and then you will see on the object the different properties of that object. And this is basically doing the same thing, just a little more in depth and a little different. But generally, it's that. So yeah, keep that in mind, I guess, if you're using that at all. Yeah, but to go over the interface here a bit, you can exit over here. So what we're basically doing is we're taking the preferences window, which also means you can show this in your normal UI. So if I switch this over to preferences and then I click blend data, this will show up in here. So if you want to do that instead of having the floating window, that works too. Yeah, and you can just exit out of the browser here. And the how-to button will take you to the documentation, to the blend data section, which will also go over all of this again. So if you need to look something up on this afterwards, then yeah, just click on this.
And that's pretty well written. It covers pretty basic detail of how this window works. It talks about the filtering and everything that you're going to explain. I felt like it was pretty well covered.
Good to hear. Okay. Yeah, then we have the source here. So you can switch between app, context, and data. And you will see this shows you different stuff here in the middle. We will stay on context for now. We'll go over that again in a second. You have a reload button here. We'll also cover that later. And then you have the filters. So the filters are unfortunately a little bit limited in that you can't filter all the way down to a property, but this filter will only filter what you can actually see here. And then you have additional filters on every item in here. So if I, for example, I'm in context right now, and if I just search for object here, you will see this shows all the different properties that have object in their name. And I could filter the type here as well. So if I only wanted pointer properties, I could do that too. But if like I wanted to get the name property of an object, I could search for name here. And then let's re-enable those. And you see there's no items for these filters because this is not going into this object and then searching for the name, but it's only filtering this list here. And the reason for that is that there's a lot of data in Blender, like a lot of data. And when we tried doing the filters globally, it would just crash. So yeah,
it's not like it's your fault. It's because there's just too much, right?
Yeah, I mean, we could probably find some smart solution with like multi-threading, doing that in the background or something, but not yet. Maybe at some point, but yeah, that will be a while, and this should also be very useful, because basically what this does is it replaces all the get data and so on nodes, which would like add outputs to the node. And instead of having it add outputs to the node, you can just expand the menu and look through these and also filter these. So if I wanted to get the name from the active object, I would go to my active object, filter by string, because I know the name is a string property. And then you can see here name, it's a string property, and you can click the copy button here to get the property. And if I now go into my my file again and press Shift V or add in a Blender property node and click paste, this will spawn in the Blender property node for this property. And you actually see there's no inputs on this. And that's because I copied this from the active object, and the active object is like, it doesn't require any inputs. It will always be the active object, and it knows what the active object is. So you can just always use the active object's name here. yeah, so that's a useful thing. And that's also where these different sections here come in, so the different sources. So we have the context section, which basically shows, context, it's kind of in the name. It's the context of wherever you are at in Blender. So the context is different when I'm here in the preferences window, or when I'm in the node editor, or I'm in the outliner, or in the 3D view. There's some data that only exists in a certain context. So for example, the node editor, the node tree that is in that node editor only exists while I'm in here. The 3D view, there's some options which I think we might build an add-on later, just as an example, which only exist in here. Like for example, the camera position. It's a property that only exists in the 3D view and doesn't exist in the node editor. So this is kind of where the context section comes in. So
let's go to like
we
the
can-
video sequence editor and copy some context from there. That may be like a little more
I have
unique
no
example.
idea what context is in there. I haven't been to the video sequence editor in a very long time.
Yeah. So if you just go to the end panel, right? You can copy context from anything. There you
Sure.
go. Do that.
Yeah, so the copy context option basically lets you load a context. Like I said, the context is different in every area in Blender that you're in. So you can copy a context from one of those areas and then load it into the Blender Data browser here. So if I go to my sequencer and right-click pretty much anything, any button, any option here, you will see this copy context button here, which you just click that, and then if you go over here and you are in the context section, then you will see it says reload context sequence editor header, and you can click the reload button to load that context. And you saw a couple of things changed in here. And that's because it now loaded whatever properties only exist in this context of the video sequence editor.
Which is really helpful because now I don't have to go digging through Blender API.
Right.
It's so cool.
Yeah, so let me actually go to the node editor because I know what context exists here. But I could copy the context from the node editor, reload, and then if I go, for example, to space data, which space is just a kind of it's not the area you're in because area is technically something else, but it's just think of it as the area you're in. Technically, the area is the entire node editor, and there are different spaces in that editor. So we have kind of this section where you actually have your nodes. You have the header space here, and I guess I don't know what this one's called.
End panel.
Yeah,
I forget what they call it.
A
Yeah,
special name for the UI. I don't know, something.
I like to think of context as like wherever your mouse is hovering over. You're in that context,
exactly
right? So you're on the context of the Blender preferences right now. Or when you highlight over your node editor graph, you're in the graph context.
Yeah, and I can copy those contexts, load them into here, and then if I go into the space data, which as you can see is for the space of the node editor, I can see here the node tree or the tree I'm currently editing, which is context that only exists in the node editor. Like this information doesn't exist in the sequencer, for example. So this is kind of how you access data from there. So I could now go in here, take my node tree and like get the name from this node tree. And then I can copy the name property from here. So I just filtered by string again, which shows all the string properties for this node tree. Then I can copy the name property here, go to my nodes again, Shift V to add in the node, and you will see it adds in the property for this current area and space. So this is, this was an interesting example because it's basically, because it was copied from the space data, we need to give it the space that we want to get it from. And to get a space, we need to get an area. So as I said before, the area is the entire node editor, and the space is one of these sections. So the part where the node is in, the header, or this part over here. We don't really have to care about the space for stuff we copy from space data because it's pretty much the same everywhere. We do have to care about this area. So if I would plug this name into my label, you will see nothing show up, and we will have an error in the console. But I can go through my areas, and you see area number 3 shows the name of the node tree here. So if I just change this, you will see this is actually showing the name of the node, the active node tree in here. But we kind of have to go through all the areas to find the correct one. So this is just going through the sequencer, the outliner, the properties, the timeline down here. And number 3 is apparently the node editor. But we would want a better way of finding the node editor than just guessing that it's number 3. So we can change this to property. And you can see this also has a default. So this is using the active area by default, which is fine if we're displaying the label inside the node editor, because that's the area we're in, so that's the active area. But if I would display this over here, then you will see there's nothing showing up because the active area is now this properties area here and no longer the node editor. And yeah, as we said before, the active node tree doesn't exist in the context of these properties here. So we have to, if we want to display it here, we will have to plug in the node editor area, which we can get from the area by type node. And we want to get a node editor, so we can switch that in here. And we can just get the first area, plug that in here, and you can see it shows the name of the node tree for the first area. Yeah, so that is what we're using context for, and that's also kind of how you use the Blend Data browser. So you will just go through here and find your properties, and the filters kind of come in handy for like doing that more efficiently. So if you want the location of the active object, just filter by float vector, or just type in location, and you can move this over and keep typing here to sort of go through things, and then you can copy that from here. So that's kind of how you navigate this. So that's the context section, and then we can switch over to data, which is actually the easiest option here, because it basically just shows, as the name says, all the data in your file. So you will see a bunch of collections here. This option here is showing what type this property has. So if I go back to my context, the active object again, you see the location is a float vector. The object is a pointer. So in data we have a whole bunch of collections, for example, objects. And you can see this shows all the objects in my file. So you can see I have the camera, cube, light in here, and you will see those showing up here as well, and then a couple of functions here as well. But yeah, you can see the actual objects in your file. And this is different from how Serpens 2 worked, because we basically were very abstract with the data. So if you had like a get data node and you plugged an object into that, it would just show you the properties for any object. And now you're actually getting the properties for a specific object that you have in your file. So if you wanted to get a modifier, I could go in here, and you can see if I go to cube and then I go to my modifiers, you can see there's no modifier listed here. We again have a couple of functions, and we have the active modifier, but there's no modifier listed in here. So if I would add like add
a Boolean modifier, because I have a question from the chat. And we'll go ahead and add that. That way it's there already.
Yeah, so I can add a Boolean modifier, and you see it's still not showing up here. And that's where this reload option on the actual item comes in. So you could reload the whole thing again, or you just reload this section. And then you will see this Boolean show up now. So we can expand this as well. And you see all the properties of the Boolean modifier in here as well. So for modifiers, you could also just right-click them, but you can also find them this way, and you can do stuff like get an option from the active modifier. So if you wanted to get the name of the active modifier and not just of any modifier, you can go in here, go to active, go to name, copy that. Yeah, and yeah, that's the reload option, and it's showing this is actually the real-time data that is in your file right now. So if I were to copy, like, I don't know, the solver from here, which is a string. Yeah, I guess it's an enum, but whatever. Or maybe let's not do pointers yet. Let's do the solver. So I copy that from here, paste that in here, and then you see the output for that, the value output and the property output. And the inputs are now objects. So we selected this on the cube. So we have cube in here, and we selected the modifier named Boolean. So it says Boolean in here as well. But instead of Boolean, if we wanted to have this like more abstract, I guess, we could change this to index to just use the first modifier. Or again, we could copy from the active modifier. So instead of copying from the Boolean modifier, you could copy from the active modifier. And because the active modifier right now is the Boolean modifier, this will actually show the properties for this Boolean modifier. So if I would add a subsurf modifier, and you can see now my subsurf is the active one, and I reload the modifiers, then you can see now the active one is subdivision surface, and I can copy properties from the subdivision surface. But if I select Boolean again, reload this, then it will show properties for the Boolean modifier. So if I copy this solver from the active modifier instead, then you will see we only get one input. We don't get an input for the modifier name because it's now using the active modifier. You only have to put in the cube or the name of the object, and we could change this to property to now use the active object. So this node now gets the active modifier from the active object and then gives you the solver property here. So yeah, we could use this in here to show whatever the current option is, or like add a display property node and simply plug in this property here, and then you will see this option here too. And we could expand this to show it the same it is here. So that's a bit different, but just it is a lot better than plugging a bunch of different data nodes into each other and trying to find the thing you're looking for. You can actually navigate your file now based on the things you really have in your file. So you sort of know that objects live in data, so all the objects of your file live in data, and you will find an object named cube there, and on here you will find the modifiers, and in here you can find the active modifier and then a property on that. So this is kind of the big difference in how Blend data works.
I'm going to interrupt you just for a second, Joshua.
Sure.
So one of the things that really got me confused, because I was really used to using 20 nodes to find what I wanted. And so scroll up to the object cube at the very beginning. And the first things that show up that have all the filters on them, those are all the additional, what do you call these? The pointers and collections. Because they have filters, they're different than the things that don't have filters below. So if you open that up on Cube,
right.
Yeah, can you just go over that a little bit? Like the things that have filters versus the things that don't?
Yeah, so you have some options on here that you can expand and that you can filter. And then you have others which don't have that. And that's basically pointer properties and collection properties can be expanded, and other property types like booleans, strings, and so on can't be, because those are basically the final point. Like the height render property doesn't have anything below it, like it doesn't have any properties attached to it. But the object cube does, like it has a bunch of properties, and the modifiers collection has a bunch of modifiers in it, and the active modifier has a bunch of properties in it, but the properties in that modifier are just properties which you can display and so on, but they can't be expanded or filtered because there's nothing below that level.
Yeah, so like an object has material slots, and you could have more than one material assigned to an object. So when you do have more than one material, you'd come and find each of them here, right? That's how you would expand down. So if Joshua made another material slot, you'd be able to reload this, and now you got 2, right?
Yep.
Whereas the object only has one name, so you don't need to worry about filtering like anything beyond the name. The name doesn't have any more properties except for itself.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's pretty much all you need to know for the blend data browser.
So I think covering one question from Maximus in the forum. He said, "Can we now select collections from our scene and get the string name with the neat little standard Blender collection selection menu, like the one in the Boolean modifier?" I think he's talking about pointers.
Yeah, the pointer properties, yeah.
So probably we could cover pointers as well, just a little bit. Because this is new for Serpens 3. We didn't have pointers really in Serpens 2 officially supported.
Yeah, we didn't. That's right. Yeah. Yeah, totally. We could copy those from the blend data browser, but we don't need to. We can just get them from here. So I will just copy this property and then press Shift V to add in my Blender property node with the property pasted in. And you can just connect that to here, and you can see the pointer being displayed. And
that's so easy.
Same thing for label.
That's so easy.
So yeah, we can take the value here and plug that in here, and you'll see none because there's no object selected. I guess I need to add another one. So let me just add another monkey in here. And then if I select that in here, you will see it shows the actual object, so it shows Suzanne. And then we can use this output to get further properties. So if I would copy an object's name and then add in the node for that, you can change the input again from cube to property, so you're able to plug in an object to get the name from. And then we can use this pointer here as the input object, because this pointer is actually storing an object, like you're selecting Suzanne here, and then this output is, in this case, Suzanne. You can plug that into the name property and get the name from that, and now you can see the name of the currently selected object. Yeah, so that's how you can use pointers that already exist in Blender, and you can also create your own, which we can go over a little bit. I see people typing, maybe.
Yeah, Vector Impulse is asking, is it the same with collections?
Yeah, actually it is, yes. I mean, you can access collections now and also display them if you want to. So we could go to objects, which is a collection of all of our objects, and then we can copy that property. So even though it is a collection and there's stuff in it, we can still copy it. And then we can Shift V to paste that in, and we can get the object's output. And this is basically the same as if you go to objects and use the all objects output. So this is the same thing. Yeah, and you can access that and like use the index node, index collection property to like get a specific object from this collection. But we can also, yeah, let's just do that real quick. We can also do something like use a collection list. So actually this will take a bit. Well, we can do it real quick. Yeah, so the display collection list node basically lets you do something like this, like one of these lists here. and it takes in a collection. So in this case, I'm plugging in all the objects, and then it takes an index property. So this is a custom property that you create here, and it needs to be an integer property. And basically, it tells you whatever object is selected right now in your list. Yeah, that will become clear in a second as well. I can just add that in now. So I'm adding in my custom property here, and you will see a list with nothing on it. And that's because we have our output here, which we can connect something like a label to. And if I take this item and connect it in here, you can see all the different objects in our file displayed as a list here. And yeah, you could, of course, use this item output here to get a property from this object. So again, we could go in here and copy the name property, change this option to actually plug in an object here, use the item here, and instead of a label, let's display this name, that in here, that in here. And if I go back to my modifiers, you can see the list of objects, and we can actually edit the name now. So I can, yeah, do that, and we can turn it embossed so it looks a little bit nicer. Yeah, so you can totally use collections in Serpens now from the blend data, and you can create custom ones as well, which again we'll go over in a bit, like with many things.
So there is, I think there is one thing that a couple of users probably may need a little bit of guidance on. So when we talk about collections in Serpens, we're not always talking about the outliner collections, but a lot of people are asking about outliner collections as well.
I see.
So can we show something with outliner collections specifically from the blend data browser?
From the blend data browser, sure. Yeah, so if we go to data, and then we should have, let's just search for a collection here. We have all of our collections, and we can get data from those collections. So you can get, I don't know, properties like height render, height viewport, and so on. Yeah, is there something specific you want to see with the...
Well, Maximus is asking, we may not be able to solve everything in this release candidate, Maximus, but he's asking, so let's say he has a script that, you know, has something in the collection models, and he wants to replace models with a collection from his scene, which he can choose from a list of collections. I'm not really sure how to explain that.
Okay, so you want to be able to select a collection from a list, is what I'm getting.
Probably.
I think that's yeah. So the way you would do that is to create a pointer property. So on the Boolean modifier here, you can see this input, which shows all the objects in your scene, and you can pick one of those, and this property will actually return an object. So that's a pointer property, and you can create those here. And then we have the data type. So this is basically the data type that we can select here. So if we want to do the same as on Booleans here, we can set this to object. And if I add in my property and add in a display property node and connect these up, you can see this looks pretty much the same. So we can select objects here, and it's also an eyedropper. Yeah, so we can do that, or we could change this to collection, and then we can select a collection from here.
And when it updates, you could run code, right?
Yeah, so you could like have an on property update node, and then let's say like we add in a print node and get the value. So the value is the collection that we have selected, and we plug that in here. And then if I remove this or select a collection, then you will see the collection being printed here. It's also different now. Before it was kind of hidden here in the end panel. Now it's printing on the node for that particular print node.
This is super cool. And you can clear it with the trash can icon on the node.
Yeah, you can just remove those here.
That's really helpful for troubleshooting.
Then Sorry?
That's really helpful for troubleshooting because you can get through like, I don't know, 5 execute nodes in a row and then all of a sudden things aren't working. So if you throw a print node in the line, you can find out where the printing is stopping on your execute circuit, which is really cool.
Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah, so this is how you could select a collection from a list, and then when selected, you could do something with that. I'm not exactly sure what you...
I think that kind of covers what he's asking.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep, that's what he needed.
Yep.
Sweet.
Perfect.
Hey, we answered a question. Well, you answered the question. I'll give you the credit.
Thanks. Yeah, I think that's all we need for right now. We can go over these property types a bit later on if we can build an add-on. We started that in a stream, but if Corza, if you want to show off what you've been working on so far, I think that could be a nice way to kind of see what's possible.
Yeah.
Because you've been working with Serpens 3 for quite a bit for beta testing.
Corza's probably been beta testing this the most, and he's come up with some really cool stuff just from the beta. And I've only had time to play with this on the weekend. So we can turn it over to Corza. Do you want to share your screen, Corza?
Yeah, just give me a sec. Yeah, so I've got 2 projects that I've been working on, and can you guys see my screen all right?
I'm going to be joining it right now. Got it.
Okay, Discord doesn't show me my screen, so hopefully you can see it.
Yep, I can see it.
Yeah, I've just been playing around with the new features and pretty much going through like just all the older workflow of like adding properties and all the normal stuff that we're used to with Serpens 2, and just making sure that it all works and figuring out the workflow. And I've been working on the newer stuff like the icon galleries, and yeah, I've just been making little things like this. The icon gallery gets stuck when you left click on it. I'm not sure if that's a Blender thing or whatnot, but yeah, I just started making like a little kit bash thing that I can pick from icon galleries, and don't mind all of this jargon. This is this could probably just be put into a function, but I'm just sort of brute forcing things at the moment just to figure out what's happening. But yeah, this is basically just an icon gallery, which is somewhere. Yep, I'm a little bit lost. I need to organize my graphs better.
That's okay.
But yeah. And another thing that I wanted to show off as well was using icon galleries for like different purposes. I started bulking up this one where you can just like link it to like adding in a subdivision modifier or a mirror modifier or something like that. So yeah, you can sort of repurpose things for different things as well. I thought that was pretty cool. Another cool feature is what is it called? So it's just an icon gallery as well, but I've linked it to materials and made some I just rented out some icons, and yeah, just basically linking, because I think it's classed as like an enum. So whenever you click on a material, it'll change for the active material slot. So this one was a pretty simple setup, just an icon gallery, and you're creating a string property for it to list the material names. And whenever you click on something, it's doing a property update, and I'm just basically looping through the selected objects, because in this case I can select multiple objects and change their materials all at the same time. And yeah, it's just changing the active material to whatever material you want it to be, which in this case would be the value coming out of a property update. Yeah, and it's a nice, neat little system that Josh has made, like generating, excuse me, generating dynamic enums for the icon galleries and this sort of thing. It's just friggin' amazing. Like, this is yeah, it's next level stuff. It's awesome. And I'm using a dynamic enum for the icon gallery to just generate these manually, and just using the new icon node, which is great. You can select just a normal Blender icon, or you can input your own images.
I think I'm not getting what you're pointing at on your screen.
Okay.
Like a frozen Serpens gallery graph, but I'm not seeing
Okay.
anything update.
Hang on a second.
Now, Corza's streaming from Australia, so
Yeah,
his connection.
really bad internet.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Try doing the whole screen instead of the application.
Yeah, that'll be the way to go.
Try this again.
How's that?
That's much better. Yeah, so we lost you probably 5 minutes ago on what you were pointing at, but we understood what you were like. I could hear what you were saying. We just had no idea what you were pointing at. Sorry about that.
Cool. So yeah, I was just pointing out the new dynamic enum thing is great. It's awesome. Yeah, I've also been playing with trying to link geometry nodes in with Serpens as well, and I'm finding it much better to work with. Like, everything is just so much more easily accessible through the blend data window, and being able to copy properties pretty much straight off the interface. I made a little scattering system using geometry nodes.
That's so sick. Look at that. Just painting the scatter.
Yeah, and I'm just basically hacking weight paint mode and adding a separator at the top bar to just push all the normal stuff across.
And you're using a geometry nodes modifier basically to do that.
Yeah, I made one externally and then just imported it. So basically, Serpens is just appending the file that I've made already. And with Serpens, all I've got to do is basically just add a modifier and then attach the right tree to it. And yeah, like, I don't even have to make it with Serpens. Yeah, so geometry node stuff is just awesome. Like, one thing I found, you can pretty much just copy a property straight from your tree as well. So, like, if I copied that and pasted it into Serpens, like, I can display this property now. Try display property. Yeah, you can just display something straight up. So this, what would you call it, like a search box, is just a replica. So whatever happens up here, it affects what's happening directly on this node. So display properties is full on, like, next level for Serpens, because I found with Serpens 2, if you created like a custom property and then attached it to something like this, there might be like a mismatch every now and again, where like you might open a project where an interface property might be set, but in your add-on it might be deactivated. But now with display properties, everything's just linked in real time. So yeah, it's just freaking awesome. Yeah, I also made another one that just basically imports like a radial array, and just all done with geometry notes as well. And yeah, same thing again, like I just make the node tree externally and then save it out, attach it as an asset, and then just append, that geometry node tree in basically. Yeah, so I think that's pretty much all I've got to show, but I have got one tip for anyone getting into Serpens 3 and struggling. Your outliner is your best friend because it's pretty much telling you exactly where you need to go in your blend browser. So like say if you copy or you change any property on the interface, like I turn snapping on, it tells you in BPY context scene.tool settings, it's telling you exactly where that property is. So like you can just follow that as a guide in your blend data browser to find most of the things that you need.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and do that. So let's go find the scene tool settings, use snap.
Yep. So BPY context, and then we'll look for scene, and then tool settings, and then use snap, which will be one of these ones down the bottom, and we can just filter it out by typing in snap. Maybe.
That's the wrong one.
Nope, wrong one.
On the web pane.
Under the main header, that's the one. And we've got use snap right there. So yeah, finding that property was easy as, and it also navigates you to, any other properties that you might want to find in this context. So like I've just been using pretty much the info panel as like a guide to where I need to go. But and again, like Joshua explained, you can just copy the property and paste it in. But I've been finding like just using the blend data browser more and more, it's just a lot easier to understand what you're pasting in, where you're getting things from, and what contexts they're in as well, because like you'll find like under active object you've got material slots, but then also under stuff like view layer objects, you might have a material slot, so there's different contexts for different things. So yeah, just as a tip for beginning, just press the buttons that you need and see what pops up in the info panel. Use that as a bit of a guide. And you can also turn on show paths in
This
your
is so cool.
blend data.
I love this feature.
Yeah, this is great because you just see exactly, the context, and if you're getting something from the right context, or if you're setting a property in the right context and all that sort of thing. So everything being exposed like this is just great.
Well, you can even use it while you're writing scripts. Just open up the blend data browser and say, okay, I'm looking for I'm looking for this thing.
Yeah. Yep.
And
If
then
you're
go get
writing
it.
Python, this would be gold. Like yep.
Now, Joshua, I think you can copy that Python name from here too. Is that right? Or is that not possible?
That's what the copy button
Yep.
is doing. Yeah.
So you could paste that directly in a script and it would paste the
Sure.
beat type context screen.
Yeah. So basically, with Serpens 2, when you copy the property, it would have this like very weird format. It was basically a big JSON object, if you know what that does. And now it's just the path.
That's so cool.
That has the downside that you now have to set the output type in some cases, but I guess that's one of the reasons, but not the main reason. But it has the advantage that if you find a data path somewhere, you can just get that and paste it in.
And that doesn't change with scripting. I mean, you'd have to define that data in your script anyways.
Right. We're getting over 50 milliseconds again.
Yeah, I'd just sort of point out, like, I've been working on this add-on for a couple of days now, or almost a week, I think. And like I'm starting to build up like a fair few properties and displaying this and that. I've got a fair few node trees, and some of them are pretty heavy, but 50 milliseconds is sort of getting up there, but it's not too bad. Like, you don't see any lag when it compiles and when things show up in your interface, but you do get like a slight bit of lag when you just drop in like a node or something.
I think that's a Blender
But
limitation, not a
it's
Serpens
definitely
limitation.
Blender, yep. But what I've been doing is just trying to break up my add-on into like into segments. Like you would have noticed it in Serpens 2, where like if you filled out a whole graph of nodes, it really slowed down. And same thing applies here, but I think I've got like which one was it? I think that's like probably my heaviest graph, and that's about the lag that I'm getting. Like it's not much, so yeah, that's cool. Just break up as much as you can into functions and different trees, and it's basically just real time all the way through. So yeah, that's pretty much all I've got to show.
Yeah, so one tip while you're talking about all your graphs, so a lot of things that can help you break up your graphs is making use of functions, interface functions, and there's a couple cool things that Joshua has done with portal nodes. And I think variables can now travel between graphs as well, right, Joshua?
Yep, they
So
can, yeah.
the multi-graph
that's
limitations are like they're becoming overcome, and it's like asking you, hey man, go ahead and make graphs for your topics that you want to, and you can still get access to your stuff from other graphs much easier. The fact that you can make portals travel across graphs is just so sick. You just have to be careful when you're using portals, because if you've got something inside of a function and all of a sudden you're using a portal for something that's not related at all, like you have to be careful. You still have to be smart with your programming. But if you know how you're working with the portal, you can make use of that portal in other graphs on the output.
Yep.
Yeah, and maybe one thing to quickly point out is that that doesn't really help you with like optimizing your node trees, but it does help with like organizing your node trees. We have reroutes now, so we didn't have reroutes.
Oh
in
yeah,
Serpens
show the
3, but
reroutes.
we
These
do
are so
now.
cool. You only want to reroute certain things. Like you don't want to. Well, I guess
Yeah,
you
like
can
you can
reroute anything, but you don't want to send a reroute to like 5 places on an interface.
Right, yeah,
Right?
you still can't, like one panel output can only go to one panel node, but
Yeah,
it
don't do
should
this.
show
This
you
won't
that
work.
yeah.
Yep.
So when a wire shows up red, that doesn't work.
And sometimes it will break things too. I've noticed. I've run into a couple of situations where like the whole string might need to be refreshed if you do end up in that situation. But
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the fact that you
so
can
you're
add
saying-
reroutes allows you to clean up your graphs. So if you have like a noodle that's crossing 8 different nodes and it's hard to see what's going on, and you don't really want to use a portal, you can add reroutes in and start making, like moving the reroute out of the way, just organizing the graph a little bit more.
Yeah. And I just shoot it. You can use reroutes as like little notes as well.
Oh, that's so cool. I've been using frames, but that's a lot less, man, look at that.
It's good, eh?
Little tips from the programmers.
Display searches are freaking awesome too. Like I haven't played too much with them, but they're all dynamic now. So like I've got this one set up to be selected objects. So like it'll just keep updating with the selected objects. That's cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and Blanch is going to do all tutorials on all this sort of stuff. So there's no point in covering everything right now. Yeah, back to you guys.
Thanks, Corza. This is awesome, man. Yeah, so I'll be Joshua's done and Finn have done a ton of work on the documentation, and my goal is to try to take the beginner's documentation information and teach people how to do basic add-ons. So that'll be coming over the next, I don't know, few months. I'll cover things like, you know, how to duplicate an object, how to make a new collection, how to link things, how to use the blend data browser, and then I'll try to cover the nodes as well. I've been holding off on the nodes because I knew Serpens 3 was coming. But I think Joshua's going to try to walk us through. If we have time, Joshua, do you want to help us walk through making an add-on?
Yep, let's do it. Yeah, so I'm gonna just steal your idea.
That's perfect. So we did this in the beta, right? This is so cool, right? Because we've never had the ability to use property groups. We're gonna do property groups, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's property groups, and I think what you're gonna be doing. I'll let you take the floor. I'll just go ahead and shut up.
Sure. Right. So what we'll build is basically we will make an add-on in the 3D view here to store the camera position, and then we can go somewhere else and then click on that camera position and it will load back up. So basically you can save a bunch of viewpoints in here, click on them, and it will set you back to that position. And we'll use the new collection lists and property groups and all of that good stuff to make that work. Okay. Yeah, so let's just start by putting our panel in here. So this is now nice in real time, but pretty much the same otherwise. So let's just add that to the name here. So let's put that in here. Okay. And let's, I don't know, save views or something. So there we go, there's our panel. And basically what we want to do is we want to create a collection, and not a Blender collection like you have in the outliner, but a collection property, which lets us add items to it. So sort of the way you have in vertex groups, we want to be able to add viewpoints in here and then click on them to get back into that view. So we want to create a list like this, and to do that we need a property and we need a collection property. So a collection property is basically just a list of items. So for example, the objects collection property is a list of objects. In our case, we will create a collection of a custom property group here. So let's just start with our collection here. We will call that something like saved views. So this is the collection of all the views we will list here. And then you will see there's no property group selected. So we need to select a property group in here. And for that, we create another property, change the type to group. And on here, you can see you can add properties to that group. So group properties are actually like fairly simple. It's basically just a way to group together a couple of properties into one package of sorts. So a common use case for this is add-on properties. So for example, all of these here, we have them in a group and that is attached to the scene. And this way we don't have all these individual properties attached to the scene, but we have one property group attached to the scene and all the add-on properties in that group. So in our case, we want to have this group for one of these items, and we want to create a view that we can store. So we probably want to name that. So let's give it a string property and call that name. We want to store the location. So let's create a float property, and that's a float vector. And that's the location. I guess it's called camera location. And we'll probably need the rotation as well, but yeah, let's keep it simple for now. Let's just add the name and the camera location. So we now have this group property, which has two properties inside it. And now we can go back to our collection property and select this property group. So with this, we basically created a collection that can have multiple items, so we can add items to it, and each of these items will have all the properties that this property group has. So for every item, we can change the name and we can change the camera location. Yeah, so let's then go ahead and display this this collection list in our panel here.
And if you're getting
So
lost, I'm recording this for review later.
Yeah, it might be a lot to take in, and yeah, there's also the documentation which has it in text form, but just going over the recording is probably good as well.
We'll also be in the chat to help with diagnosing problems and working things out as well.
Cool.
Yep. And if you have questions right now, like just speak up or put them in the chat again, and we'll go over that too. Yeah, so the display collection list node, we can plug that into our panel. We want to get this collection, so we attach this to the scene. So this is, yeah, same as with any other property. We attach a collection to the scene. The only place where this is different is with the group property, because the group is just sort of a template. Like it's just saying this group should have these properties in it, and then we need to create a collection to actually like have items of this group. We could also create a pointer property and can use a property group here too, and that would just create one version of this group property as a pointer here. With a collection, we can create multiple items of this. Okay, so collection. We have the display collection list node. We can add in our property node here. So we used the Blender property node earlier. We also have a Serpens property node to get the properties you create here. So we can switch between add-on properties and node properties. Node properties are like created on operators or preferences. Add-on properties are the ones you make in the end panel over here. We can select our saved views property here. You see the scene input. This is where you would have to attach the active scene before. Now it's just using this by default. So we can take the property output and attach this to here. In this case, it doesn't matter if you're attaching the property or the value output, because it's both blend data. But usually it's good to use the property output if you actually want to get a property. So even though this is a square and this is round and this one is square, it's usually a good case to just use the property if you want to actually display the property. But again, like in this case, it doesn't matter. We could use either one. And then again, we need the index property. So in order to be able to select one of these items here, we need to use an index property. So I'm saying index property, it's basically just an integer. So we could call this like selected view. And this just stores the index of whatever view we have selected at that point. So if I had selected, like this is vertex group, but if I had selected the first one here, this would be index 0. If I select this one, this is index 1, and so on. So we can do the same with our views here, and we can turn on minimum 0 here, so we can't go below 0 because there's no items, like no negative indices for items. Yeah, so let's get that integer property in here, connect this, and then we have our collection property displayed here. So we don't have any items in this collection yet, like there's nothing in here yet because we haven't created any yet. So let's go ahead and make a button which can add items. So we create an operator, and actually let me just save that file just in case, yeah, operator, just like before, create a button, set that to custom, select a node tree in here. So because you can create operators on other node trees as well, to select the node tree you want to get it from, and then the operator. Let's name it like add view. There we go. So we can, to make it look like this, this sort of view, we can add in a row before this, and then display our collection list, and then display our button next to that. And we probably don't want any text on there, but the add icon, and that gives us this button. And then I guess we can duplicate this and add in a column and connect this up here. And then we'll just use add for now. We'll add a remove operator later, but just as a placeholder, can add this in here and align these two. And this gives us the same setup as we have in the other collection lists here. Okay, so now for our add view operator. We want to add an item to our collection property. So we add an add collection item node and connect that up here. We need to plug in the collection we want to add an item to. So I can go in here, go to my saved use collection and add in this property node again. Connect this up and just organize it a little bit. Right, so this operator should now add a collection item to our property. So if we click the button, you can see it shows up here, and if I click on it again, you can see I can switch between different different items in here. But there's nothing showing up on the items here. We would want our name property, which we created here, to show up. So we can go to our display collection list node, and we have an output here for the item row. So this is each of these rows. This has an interface output here to display something in there.
Hey Joshua.
And yes.
Before you go forward, can you go back to the operator? And what's the property that you copied? That one.
This one. This is the collection property.
Okay, so the save views.
We want to add an item to our collection, so we get the collection we want to add it to.
Okay.
Yep.
So it's essentially like a custom custom collection, and you're adding blank items to pretty much a blank collection at the moment.
Yep, that's right. Yeah.
Okay. All right, moving forward. So we're on the display collection list.
Right. So let's just put a label in here so we can see something show up. So you can see for all the different items we have, and if we add another one, we can see it show up here. It just shows this label. So we can use this item here to just plug that in here, and you can see now the different items showing up. So they have different numbers here, but this is not really useful. But basically each of these items is one of the items in the collection property that we added with our operator down here. And each of the items has all the properties that we added to our group. So every item in the collection has a name property and has a camera location property. And we can access those as well. So if we add in a Serpens property node, we now want to get a property from a property group, because we have these properties in the this group called view. So we check checkbox, click view, and let's just display the name for now. And now you will see there's an input for a pointer property. So because this group property isn't attached to anything, like we can't select scene here or something, we need to give it something where these properties are coming from. And in our case, they are coming from the collection items, which have this property group. So we want to get this property from the item. So we can just attach the item here. And let's, if we plug in the value into the label, nothing will show up because all the names are empty. I guess we could give it a default, like new view. And then the default will show up for this property, but that's in it. Add a display property node, attach that to our item row, attach the property in here, and now we can rename all of our properties. So
yeah, instead of a
like
label, we're actually allowing ourselves to update the property itself, right?
Yep.
With the display property.
Yeah. Right. So yeah, I can now change the name of the individual items, and I can turn off emboss so it looks a little nicer. But yeah, you can basically just go in here and rename the individual items that you can create here. All right. So next up, let's maybe just get our remove operator to work. So let's copy this. Actually, let's just copy the operator node. Let's call this remove view. Select that operator in our button. And then, like we had a add collection item node, we can also remove a collection item. So we can attach this to our execute input. And then again, we can just copy the node from up here. We want the collection property that we created.
Let's use a portal.
Because we... Okay.
Since we have to do it twice, might as well show them how to use a portal
Sure.
if nobody's ever used one.
Okay, yeah, then let's add a Serpens property node over here with this collection selected. Let's add a portal node, give it a bit of a nicer color. Yeah, sure. Yeah, then connect the data that you want to pass on. And we can give this a better name, like saved views, name for our collection. And then the way you get the output is you just duplicate the node, change it to out. Then you need to change the data type again. So in this case, it's yeah, we just change it to whatever we put in here. So in this case, property. Then we can collapse the node to make it like as small as possible. And now we can kind of use this all over the place to get this value and not have to connect it everywhere. So we can just connect this up here and connect this down here. Yeah, so that's just a way to pass data from here to here without having to have wires going all over the place. Okay, so for the remove collection item, we can give this an index. So we can give this the index of the item we want to remove. So if I would click this button right now, and you see the first one is named 1, but even if I have this one selected, it removes the first one. So we want to give this the index of the selected item, and this is where our indexing property comes in. So this is the one we connected to this index property input on the display collection list node. This is just an integer property which tells us which index is selected right now. So we can use this node down here and just take the value output. So this is the current index and connect that in here. And now this will remove the collection item from our collection with the index of the currently selected item.
Which one did you copy again? That's from the views?
You mean this one?
Yeah.
Oh, this one is
That's just the index property. Yep, the integer, okay.
Yep, because we want to get the index of the selected one. We get the index property. All right. So yeah, if I have test selected now and I remove this, that's the one that goes away. So if I rename these and I remove the second one, you will see that the correct ones disappear. Yeah, so that's how you remove a collection item. So now let's actually implement the part where we set the position and get the position when we click on an item. All right, so we know that when we're creating the collection item, so in our add view operator, when we click this button, we basically want to store the current view that we're in on this item here, or this item we just created. So for that, we added on our group property the camera location here as a float vector. And we want to set that at the moment when we create a new item. So for that, we use a set property node. connect that up here. And then we need to connect the property we want to set. So we can use a Serpens property node again. We want to get a property from a group because this is the camera location which is in a group. Select our view group and select the camera location property. And then we can connect that up here. And that's the property we want to set. And we want to set it to a specific value. So let's just set this to float vector because that's what we're trying to set it to. And yeah, the last thing we need to do here is to connect the item to this pointer property input. And that's basically just we add a collection item. So we add an item to this list. And then on that item, we want to set this camera location property. So that is the one we plug into this input here. And then we want to set that property to this value. And yeah, last thing here is that we actually need to get the correct value. So we don't just want to set it to 1, but we want to set it to the location that our view is at right now. And we can get that over the Blend Data browser. So we talked about context earlier. So the camera location only exists in the 3D view. So we need to copy the context here, load the context, and then go down to our space data. In this case, I know that the location is under the 3D region here. And we can find the view location in here and just copy that. Paste that in here, so Shift V to add in that property, and connect the value output to this value input. So now we're adding the collection item and then setting the camera location property on this item to the current view location. And we talked about this earlier as well. Right now, this is just the first area, or the area with index 0, but we can change this to property to use the active area, which will actually work in this case because we're in the 3D view clicking this button. So the active area will be the 3D view. Yeah, so that should already work. Let's just to see that it's actually working, get this property again. So I will add in a Serpens property node and get the property from the view property group, the camera location. And let me just display this here. So let's put in a label, plug this in here, and plug the value output in here. And you will see nothing show up because we didn't connect any the item we want to get it from. So we want to get it from the selected item. So what we do for that is we get our collection. So we can use the portal here. But you could just get the Serpens property node and get the collection you created here. And then we want to get one item from that collection. So we want to get the selected item. And for that, we use the index collection property node. So this is kind of the way it was in Serpens 2, in that you can get an index by name or by an actual number index from a collection. So we connect that up here. And as the index, we want to again use our indexing property here. So this is the integer property we made to keep track of whatever item is selected. We add that node in as a property, connect the value output here. And now this gives us the selected index to this collection, and that gives us the current item here. And then we connect that to our property, and this shows us the vector of the stored location. So let's just get rid of these again and add a new one, and you can see that this is like there's values in here now. So actually use a display property node instead. Connect this up, and let's just put this in a column. And there you go. This is the camera location we're at right now. If I move over here and select this, you can see it's different location. So that works. Okay. I should probably just ask if there are any questions at this point before I move on. I mean, it's probably a lot if you haven't used any of these before.
Yeah. People might be lost, and that's okay. I've got it recorded. And
Perfect.
I am following along. I think I'm just adding my column right now.
Ah, nice.
And I will post this blend file to this chat, if that's okay.
Sure.
I may do a little bit of cleanup, but you can come back and reference it, so you don't have to try to build it all on your own.
Perfect. Yeah, okay. So then from here, let's take care of going back to this view. So when we click on a view, we want to jump back to that location. So the way we do this is we want to get an event from when the index property updates. So we want an onProperty update node for when this index of the selected item changes. So we can go to this property here, get the onProperty update node. This is basically the same as in Serpens 2. We now just have a different reason for using them, I guess. So because if we click on an item here, the index changes to 0 or changes to 1, we can get that update by getting the update from this indexing property. And now we can actually get the value, and as we did up here, get one item from our collection. So I'm using the index collection property node, putting in our collection property, and then putting in the value. We can use the value that we're getting from the onProperty update node. And this is basically the index that was just selected. So if I click on here, it's 0. If I click on here, it's 1. And then it's getting the item at that point. So the item we just selected. And now we can use this item to get the location property. So in our group, we have the camera location. We can add a Serpens property node from a property group, the view group, the camera location. Then we plug in our item here, and this is the value that we have in here as well. And now we basically want to do the opposite thing from what we're doing here, where we're getting this view location, and we want to set the view location. So we can actually copy this this Blender property node, or we could get it from the Plant Data browser again. Let's copy the node, and let's add in a set property node. We want to set the view location. We want to set it to a float vector, and we want to set it to the location that is stored in this item that we just selected. So now let's just connect the execute output here, and click on item, and there we go. So we have two locations stored here. If I go over here and I add a new one and I switch between them, it switches between the different views we have. So that's actually the full thing, like the full basic thing of how to do this. We can add the rotation property in as well, so we don't just get the location, but we get the rotation as well. But this is kind of the basics of this add-on idea. Should we do the rotation real quick, or something else maybe?
I don't know. What does everybody want to see? Do you guys want to see adding in rotation now that you've basically built the structure? We'll see what people say. I do want to say, if you know how to do this on a property group, just the way we've done it now, all you have to do is copy the structure we've done in this video, and you can make any property group.
Yep.
So, like, this was pivotal for me. It's like, holy crap, I can do this for anything now. so like,
I really like as well how the view location sort of packs the vec4 into one output now as well. Like in Serpens 2, I'd have to get like the X, Y, Z, and W and store all of those separately. But having like the compact, all the grouped properties is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to easily display things and get access to the data right away. So Vector Impulse is asking about add-on preferences. I can do the rotation in my blend file if you'd like, Joshua. We can move on to the next thing.
Yeah, we can do that. Okay, yeah, so...
And I think...
are there any...
I think it may be good to do... let's see. RD Polarity is asking about file reading.
Yeah, not directly. At least not for JSON, because we don't have dictionaries in Serpens. So you can like just write a short script to open up your file, get the dictionary, and then store it in Serpens variables. I'm just going to quickly show the run script node. This is still
so
kind
cool.
of work in progress. But yeah, you can look at the documentation to see what is still work in progress. Finn is working on that. But you can basically pass in variables to the to your script. So instead of having to like copy the property name from the variable, which you can still do, you can now actually add inputs here, and same thing with outputs. I believe outputs don't work right now. Finn, maybe you can quickly write it in the chat, but yeah, either way, that will be possible with the run script node.
Yeah, I think he answered that. That was one of the first few questions, I think. That has still got some stuff to work out with that.
Yeah. Yeah, so import for JSON files still with the script. I guess we could do it for text files. I think we actually have a node for, not for that, but for creating a folder. Yeah, we have a node for creating a folder. So, and I think for listing files in the folder, list. I don't know what it's called. List files, list directory files. There we go. Yeah, so you can like get a list of all the files in one directory if that's, I guess that can be useful. All right. Yeah, so now JSON reading, maybe text file reading at some point. Yeah. Okay, then next one was about preferences, right? Yeah, okay. Preferences. Yes, so preferences node. Basically the same as before. So the node is the same. You can still add properties on that node. The difference is
Should we do a... Ooh, I know what we can do. Let's do a key map to save that view. Wherever you're at, let's save the view via key map instead. Like add a new view. The view location that we just did.
Yeah, let's do it. Okay, yeah, then for that, we basically want to...
We'll add that key map to this preferences, if that's okay.
Yeah, we basically want to trigger this operator with a shortcut. So we add one key press node. We only want this to run in the 3D view because this is, yeah, where we have our location. On press. Any suggestions for shortcuts? I don't know. I have no idea what's taken and what not. Let's try Shift Y.
Shift Y is good on mine. Let's do it.
Perfect. Then let's select our add view operator. So this is the operator we want to run. Let's try this out. Shift Y. Oh, it just didn't update, but it's working.
So how do you go? You have to go to custom operator, right, on that in order to get to your Serpens ones?
Yeah, cool. But on Blender operator by default, you can paste operators in here. You can change it to custom. Yeah, because it's not updating, let's add in a refresh view node at the end here, and then if you press Shift Y, you will see the new one appear when we hit the shortcut. Perfect. All right, so that's adding in our shortcut. We now want to display that in the preferences. So let me add in a preferences node, and let's just open the preference. Oh, good. There we go. preferences, and that's the Serpens preferences. Because the preferences from your node are no longer shown with your add-on, but they are shown under the Serpens preferences under the custom tab, at least during development when you export the add-on, it will be, of course, like in your own add-on preferences. Yeah. And then to display a Serpens shortcut, you use the display Serpens shortcut node, conveniently named. Select the node tree, the onKeyPress node, and connect that up here. Then this shows our shortcut, so we can name this add view, and we could change the shortcut to, like, I don't know, roll by. I guess that's what. Okay. And you see it changed right back, and it will change. If I rename this, it will just change right back. And this is because this is during development, and every time the add-on gets recompiled, this shortcut will be reset. When you actually export your add-on and install it, this will work now. And will be saved across files and reopening Blender and so on. So just keep that in mind. During development, the shortcuts will reset when you change them. But you can add a key map or a keyboard shortcut into your preferences this way.
Should we do add a couple of properties on the preferences node too, real quick, like a general/support, or make an enum selector maybe? I don't know.
We can put an enum in here. So if we create a property on here and change it to enum, we can add items to that. Let's say like settings and I don't know. Guess we don't have any settings, but that's fine. So we have 2 items on here, and then let's add in a Serpens property node. Change the selection here to node, because we don't want to get properties from here, but from the preferences node. Select our node tree, select the preferences node, and then the property we just created, we can change that to navigation. And you will see the input here says preferences using self. So it's using this node to get the property from, so you don't need to plug anything in here. Same with operator properties, you don't need to plug anything in the input. Like you only need to definitely plug something in if it says no data. Okay, and then display property node. Guess this should go above. Connect our enum here, and we have our dropdown. We can turn on the expand option, and we need to give this a label. So let's say navigation for the names to show up. Let's move that above here, and let's put this in a row so it shows up side by side. And then we can, based on this enum selection, we can show different settings. So we can get this property again, we can rename that to like navigation. So this would be like an alternative to adding in a portal, because it's now on one node. You can just kind of use this and you have the 2 outputs. So we want to have an if-else node to compare what our current navigation value is and then show different things depending on this value. So for that we add a compare node, and we want to get the value of our enum property at that point. And let's say we want to display our shortcut if this is true. So we add another string, and we set the name here to shortcuts. Let's type that in here. And then we can put this in here and say if the value of the enum property is the same as this string shortcuts, then this condition is true, meaning the true output will be drawn here. So we can display our shortcut, and if we switch over here, we can see that working. And I guess we can add in a label just saying like settings to the false output. So if this is not equal to shortcuts, meaning it is settings, because those are the only two options we have. We can switch between them. Right. And I guess we could also like add an icon here for good measure. There's a keyboard shortcut. There we go.
Sweet. I got it on mine.
Nice. Yeah, anything else you want to see on the preferences or anywhere else?
Cover image galleries a little bit.
That's a big one.
Oh, is that a big one? Maybe we don't have time for that. We covered it a little bit in one of my beta videos.
Yeah, and there's some examples on the in the documentation.
Documentation is fine. How about we'll ask the community. What are you guys having in mind that you'd like to see next? How much time do we have?
Like an hour until I get really hungry.
Okay. Good. Yeah, this is all for you. Whenever you wanna tap out. Let's open it up to the community. Do you guys have questions on anything or anything you want to see?
If not, we can quickly go over the icon gallery, I guess.
Yeah, I'd like to cover some of the newer features, at least for the release candidate. Things that people maybe haven't seen in Serpens 2, just to showcase some of the new stuff.
The other big thing that's left is the icon gallery. The icon gallery. I guess we can quickly go over some of the like new interface nodes here, because there's a couple of. Oh my god!
What'd you do?
I have no idea.
The new Blender split window.
Yeah.
Make sure you save.
I'm not used to it. All right, let's just get rid of the preferences.
What did subpanel get changed to? VR Animated is asking.
Oh yeah, the subpanel is just on the panel. So if we go to the panel we created here and we copy this panel node, and then we change this to is subpanel and select this one we created here, then we get a subpanel.
Oh, that's so cool.
Now we could make a subpanel. Oh, I guess not in here. I guess not in here either. That's interesting. Oh, because we have now. Did I just find a bug, or is this like
because the order index?
No, that should be fine.
It needs the same label, I think.
Yeah, but I just put it over here in the in this space. Like it works in the custom one. This one works. This one doesn't. Interesting. I have to look into that. Does not throw an error. Oh no, it does. I guess it's an old one. Yeah, I don't know. I will look into that. But like generally, it's just on the panel node, so there's no separate subpanel node anymore. Cool. You just copy the node and check a subpanel. Yeah, and then on the, I guess from other interface nodes that got added, we can like back the display preview node real quick, and I will save before I do that. So we can like take the materials node and get the active material and plug that in here, and my Blender crashes.
That's perfect. Sweet! You knew it. You knew it was gonna happen.
Yeah, that's why we saved before. Let's try that one more time.
So this is a good time to also talk about Blender does not do well with undo on the Serpens graphs, right?
Yeah. Right, so undo is a bit, tricky. Usually it should work, but I wouldn't recommend it, because you basically have to press this button when you undo, because there's no good way of keeping track of what the only thing you just undid. Yeah, so just don't undo, I guess. It's
On
kind
that
of,
note-
well, actually, sorry?
Just on that note, I've been finding more and more that you don't really need undo that much when you can manipulate the noodles now. Like if you control right click to like cut a noodle or something, like you couldn't really manipulate noodles like that in Serpens 2. But yeah, I haven't been using undo all that much really. Like it's
Yeah.
it was more of just a luxury in Serpens 2. Like if you connected up some noodles and you just wanted to undo it, you could get away with it. But now you can just slice your noodles or work around it. It's not that much of a problem.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, there's unfortunately not a lot I can do about that. Like about, yeah, undo being a bit, yeah, prone to crash. So save often and turn on autosave as well. That's usually a good idea. So yeah, this node just crashed, and it says on the node that it can crash a lot. And this is basically just because, sorry, the node is basically displaying what you see here. And this is like you saw it load a bit for when I expanded this panel, because it has to render these previews, and Blender doesn't like that.
What version of Blender are you on right now?
I think the newest one, 3.1.2.
So I'm on 3.1.0 and I'm not getting a crash.
Yeah, maybe it was like before, because I had no active object, or like no object directly selected.
Oh, yeah, that might be possible. Yeah, I have an object
I
selected.
don't know.
Hey, you're not crashing now.
No, yeah, no, I'm not showing it. There we go. Yeah, so now it's working. Yeah, so generally it works, but just as it says, careful. Don't use these previews if you don't have to. There's another one, display icon.
Use at your own risk.
Yeah, which lets you like display an icon at a bigger scale in here. You can plug in images here, or you could also use the convert data to icon node, so you can convert a couple of data types to icons. So like we can put in name in here, and then get this material's preview icon showing up in here. And if I like change the color of this, I guess let's display it in here.
Oh.
Be careful with these nodes.
So display icon, I don't think I've used that one yet.
Yeah, that's not really a good reason. People are just asking a lot about like displaying images in the UI and so on, and you can use this for that. So you could like get an icon node, select an image here, and display that in your UI. So if I like,
that's right. Okay.
I don't know, create a UV grid here or something, and I connect that up. Well, that's a bad choice, I guess. But yeah, no, it shows you the image, but it's very limited in terms of resolution. I don't remember what exactly it is. Like, I think 128 or 256 pixels. Yeah, so maybe useful in some cases, but be careful, because this one can be slower and the other one crashes a lot. Yeah, not really a fault of the node, more a fault of the interface element behaving this way. Yeah, I guess the other one left is the icon gallery. I don't know if we have some questions.
Vector Impulse has a question about property always outputting false.
It shouldn't, no. Let me add another boolean. So if I display this property and use this as the label, and then let me just open the preferences. Then false true. Seems to work. Yeah.
It's okay, Vector Impulse. I do weird things all the time. I do things I shouldn't do in Serpens.
Okay. Yeah, let's try to quickly do the icon gallery.
Okay.
So let's just put this here. And basically an icon gallery, like we saw it in the add-on earlier, it lets you create an enum property. And then if you like have a couple of items with icons on it, let's just select some random icons here. And then I use this property, this enum property, and put that in my icon gallery. Then you can see you can now select between the enum items based on this icon. And because we now have dynamic enums, we can actually use custom icons in here, which means you can create galleries for like assets and so on. Yeah, so let's check this dynamic items checkbox, and this will add this option to generate items. And if we click that, this adds in a node, generate dynamic enum items, which just selects your property here and has an items input. And then we can create a new enum item, which adds a node, and we can give this a name, and again choose an icon on here and plug that in here. And then we can we can see this item here. We can use a list node in here to add multiple items, so one is pretty useless, but if we select multiple ones, we can do that here. And in addition to that, we can connect a custom icon here, so we could open an image in here. I have no idea if I have PBR. Maybe I have like some random images. There we go. I don't know what this is from. I think Extreme PBR, but yeah, we can basically load our own icons in here. So if you have assets and want to have custom icons for this, you can do that now. Yeah, and this is kind of the simple way to use the generate dynamic enum items. You can also create these items based on a function. So how do we show that in a way that's like reasonably quick? Well, I guess I can show the
Do the example, yeah.
Generate dynamic enum items, right? So yeah, this is the simple setup we had right now, and this one is a bit more complex. So you see down here, we still have a generate dynamic enum items node with the property selected, but now we're using a run function node to get our items, and this function is created up here. So we have this function which returns a list. And this is the list of items. So as we did with just the list node and then plugging in the enum items, we can also use a list variable and then basically add items to that variable in our function, and then return the list to get the enum items. So yeah, I mean, we can rebuild this. It doesn't have any icons on it, but that's fine. Actually, maybe you can generate the icons. Let's see. All right, so what we do is we create a function node, so execute function. We need a function return, and then we need a list variable. So let me create a new variable here. Let's call this items. And then the first thing we want to do in our function is to reset the list. So to basically make it empty again. Because down here, when we use the run function node and select our node tree, this function here, and then this return node, and then add this node, so get variable, add this node as an output, make sure that's set to list. Then we can turn off require execute here and plug that in here. And basically what this does is every time this interface here gets refreshed, so like every time you hover over it, it will rerun this function and get the items from the function. So if you would not reset the variable, it would just keep adding items to it. So at the beginning of the function, we want to empty the list so we can then again like add them, start adding them from scratch. So let's just add an item in here for every object in the scene as an example. So if I add in a for loop and then just disconnect that for now. Then for every item, for every object in all of our objects, we want to add an enum item to our list variable. So if we add an add to list node, we can connect it to the repeat output here and select to correct the list variable. And then the item we want to add is an enum item. So let's get the make enum item node, connect that here. And we can, for the name, for now, let's just use the item directly. We can just get the object. Actually, let's just get the object name. So right click the property here, copy that, change this to property, get the item, and then get the value. So this is now going through all the objects, and for every object, so for this item here, we're getting the name from that object and then getting the enum item with this value as its name. So we are now adding an enum item for every object, and when this loop is finished, we want to return again, and this should already work. So if I enable show labels on this icon gallery node, we can see the different names of the objects in our scene. If I like add a monkey, then we can see this getting added here, and we can switch between those. And yeah, it's also good to know that like this is just an enum property. So like if you use a normal display property node and you connect this up, then you will see the same dropdown. If I select one here, it will get selected here, and if I select it here, it will get selected here. So this is just a different way of displaying an enum property. Okay, so yeah, for the icon, maybe we can try the data to icon node. Set this to object, plug in the object's name, and get the icon. And let's see what that does. Ooh, it's hanging. Oh, and it crashed. That's Spotify. I just opened Spotify. All right. Yeah, so again, be careful with this node. I guess it doesn't really work in this case. We can try it one more time. Nope. Doesn't want to do it. But like if you had custom items here of some sort, like you have assets and then a list of assets, which you could, for example, add with a collection property. Like you could create a collection property, let the user create assets here, select the path for the image, and then use the icon node to get this image as an icon, and then connect that up here to display that that particular thumbnail for the asset. All right. Yeah, so that's the icon gallery node and the dynamic enum items, which kind of go hand in hand with that. Okay. Any other questions? Don't rename a specific shape key. Okay. Okay, so like how do you want to, like what's your plan for finding the shape key? So we can, like renaming is pretty simple, but I guess we can't find it by name if we want to rename it. Or do you want to find it by name and then give it a different name? Okay, got it. Yeah, so let's add in, actually like one thing I like to do, at least for testing, is like adding in some weird event that I will never use, like on load or like, I don't know, on Blender close, I guess. to test stuff. Like you can click this button to run what's after it. Like you could add in an operator and then display it somewhere, but for testing, I just like adding in some event and then.
Ooh, that's a
clicking on
nice
this
little
button.
hack. I like that.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that.
Yeah, just get rid of it when you export your add-on, so nothing unexpected happens. Yeah,
just
so
put
we
on an
can use
is add-on
this.
export in front of it, and you'll never have to worry about it.
That's actually true. We could use an if node here and an is export
Export your messy code. Nobody will ever know. Perfect.
and only use the default output. That would actually work. Yeah, or maybe just don't. But yeah, I mean, it would totally work. I guess it's just for testing. We would move this. Like if this were actually a feature, we would probably have an operator or something for this. Okay, so we want to get a shape key. So let's figure out where those are stored. Maybe we can get that from the tooltip here. So it says BQL data objects.active shape key index. So that would be the active shape key. Is that fine, or do we want it by name? We can probably also get it by name. Shape key. By name would be best. Okay. All right, then yeah, let's figure out where the shape keys are stored. I think they are kind of separate here. Yeah, shape keys. I don't actually know how this works. Like, what if I select a different object? Will this get reset?
If you expand key, it'll show the block keys
Key blocks.
or key blocks.
So if I reload this is for the no. So this is just like for all objects.
Typically, a shape key is just tied to
no,
an individual object. Yeah.
I think it's just plain data, but
yeah. Okay, so we have one called key and one called key 001 now. And I guess this one, key blocks in here match the Suzanne, so the 3 we have here. And the cube match this one, which just has the basis key.
Yep.
All right, so can we go from the object to the shape key somehow? Okay, so we have a user in here. So we have the mesh. So I don't know if this is the best way to do it, because I haven't worked with shape keys in Python, but we can do it this way, I guess. Yeah, so we know we have the shape keys here. So we can take this, copy the shape keys over, and then we get all the shape keys here. And then we can run a for loop over this collection of shape keys. And then for every shape key, we want to check if the mesh that is attached to this shape key matches the active object mesh. So let's add an if node and on repeat. And we want to get the user here. So let's copy the user, paste that in here. And then what button you had to press to get that menu? You mean this menu here? But yeah, it's just
Blend
the
data
up
button.
here.
It's the new
the
improved way of doing things.
Yeah.
I think they're wondering, is it the menu or is it the shortcut key Shift V? I think they were asking about that menu. Okay. Yeah, blend data menu.
Okay. Yep. Yeah, just the button up here.
Make sure you got data selected, right? Or in the previous one it was data. This time it's context.
I think we're still in data. I just kind of clicked around. Yeah, so if we go back to our shape key here, we have the user, and we just like copied the user for the shape key because that's the property we want to check now. So we can actually, let's get the name of the mesh. Yeah, let's do that. So if we filter the properties in here by string, we can get the name property from the user from the shape key. So we can copy that, paste this in here, and now we just have our shape key input left. We can change that to property and connect our shape key from the loop over all shape keys here. Okay, so now we get the name of the mesh that is attached to this shape key. So what we can do is we can, actually let's stay in the browser here. And let's go to context, go to our active object, get the name property of the active object, copy that here, Shift V. So this is now the name of the active object, and actually we want to get the name of the mesh. So let's change this filter to pointer. And here you can see the data and brackets the mesh. So this is the mesh of this object, and we want to get the name of that mesh. So let's filter that to string, copy that name, Shift V, and now you get the name of that mesh. So let's actually just rename that mesh name.
Can you turn on the sockets debug real quick just to show? It should say that, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
check
so
that
if
out.
I turn that on, it shows like bby.context.activeObject.data.name. So yeah.
That's handy if you're getting lost as you're doing this.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, so what we want to do is compare the mesh name to the shape keys user's name. So this is also a mesh. But yeah, we want to check if these names are the same. Then we know this is the shape key from the active object. So we can use this to then get the actual key. I don't know why this is also called shape keys. I would have thought it's like, I don't know. I guess this is key blocks. So technically the whole thing is a shape key, and these are key blocks on that shape key. Kind of weird. Yeah. All right, so key blocks, and let's switch to this one. Let's say we want to get the name of like one of these blocks. So let's go in here and get the name property. So copy that. And let's rename that to shape the block name. Let's rename this one to shape name. Right, and then we have this shape keys input here.
So Finn is saying try object data shape keys.
Object data shape keys. Oh, because the shape keys are on the mesh. That actually makes sense. There we go. That's easy. Okay, let's quickly just kind of complete this to show it, I guess. Or maybe we don't have to. Like the idea was basically just to go over all the shape keys, which would be the different, like these things here for the different objects, then go through every, actually then find out if the user matches the mesh of this object. If so, then that's the active object. That's the one we're getting the name from. And then we could check, go through all the shape keys in here and check if the name matches as well. But if we can access it, the shape keys right over the mesh, that's a lot easier. Just get rid of all of that. Go to our Blender and data browser, go to the active object, the mesh, and then the shape keys, and then just copy that collection. I guess if we go in here in the key blocks, we'll see these the different shape keys we have. So let's copy the key blocks here because we basically want to check if a shape key with a particular name is in this list here. So paste this in here. You see there's actually no inputs on this because it's only using the active stuff. So it's getting the active object, and then the shape keys on there, so you don't have to enter anything, and it will just work if you have an active object. Yeah, so we want to check if a shape key with a certain name exists in this list. So let's use the isIndex in collection node. We can connect our property here. Again, either one works. And change this to name. We want to check if, let's say, like key1 is in this collection of shape keys. Then add in an if-else node and connect it in here. So if a shape key with the name key1 exists in our list of shape keys, let's just print yes or no. And then let's click this button here, and that broke. 0 position arguments with one was given. Maybe the Blender close node is broken. Let's use this one instead. Yep, and that one worked.
Another bug, sweet.
Finn, can you note that down? Thank you. Okay, so unload. Let's use this one instead. Or we could just use an operator here, but whatever. Yeah, so we see like we're printing yes here, and if we change this to something, to a shape key that doesn't exist, and we run this, we print no. So we can use this true output to, I guess, rename that shape key. So let's just copy this node here and use the index collection property node. Now we know that this shape key exists. Let's rename that key1. So we can get this shape key, get a shape key with this name, and then rename it. So set property. Okay. So actually, we don't use the index collection property node because we need to connect the property we want to set, and that's the name property. So we can go back to our Blend Data browser here, expand one of these keys. We can use key1, for example, and then copy the name property. And then this will give us a Blender property node with the name output, which we want to set. So plug that in here. We don't need these nodes because we can just enter key1 in here, and that gets us the name property from the key block, from the active object that is named key1. We want to set that property if a shape key with this name exists. And then let's just set this to a string. And let's name it something. And if we run this event, we can see this got renamed to test. If I run this again, yeah, nothing happens because that doesn't exist anymore. Yeah, so turned out to be simpler if you just find it at the correct place in the Blend Data browser. Like a lot of data will be at different places, like multiple times all over. All over here. For example, like the materials, like there's a list of all materials here, but the individual materials also exist on like the active object, for example, the active material, or the list of materials or material slots on that material. So yeah, just have to find the right. All right. Anything else we can do?
How was that VR animated? Cool. he's able to record it. I got it to work on my end too, so I was able to rename.
Nice.
I did have to set my I had to set my key to reference the index collection, the index itself, because I was renaming the wrong key. But that was just mine. I think that was my bad.
Oh, okay.
Cool.
Okay.
Should we see last minute questions? Anybody have anything else they want to ask about? Otherwise, I'd say we're pretty much done for the release candidate smash party. Let everybody go out and play and then report bugs. I guess we should cover, if nobody's going to say anything, we should probably cover how do you guys want to receive feedback? Where do you want them to go in their channel, on the Discord, and how would you like to receive the feedback if possible? And then now's a good time for you guys to get like help, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, it would be nice, like if you find some sort of issue, if you have a way to reproduce it, like fairly reliably reproduce it. Otherwise, it's probably like we can guess just as well as you where this issue is coming from. If there's no like follow these steps to get this to, I don't know, not to work or crash. But yeah, other than that, just report the issues. Just anywhere really, there's a bug report channel, so it's probably the best place, and we will then keep track of those and try to fix them as soon as possible. And we'll probably also like upload more release candidates as we go. So yeah, as we fix these issues, I mean, we found like 2 today, small ones, but still.
Yeah, that's a good sign though, right? Small bugs means it's almost ready.
Yeah, small bugs means the big ones are gone. Hopefully. Perfect.
Cool. Thanks again, guys. This was a lot of fun, Joshua and Finn. And Corza, thanks for staying up late. I know it's really late, man.
All good, mate. This is awesome.
Oh yeah, and by the way, like if we're speaking, then it's the perfect time to just say thank you for testing. Like you've been testing a lot, and like it's been very, very helpful.
No, it's my pleasure. Thank you for making this add-on, because I friggin' hate Python scripting, eh? So, thank you.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, I can't thank you guys enough. Like I've learned Python by using Serpens. I'm not great at Python, but I'm getting a lot better, and I've learned it because of this add-on, which is cool. I've made like 18 of my own personal add-ons just to help me in my own workflow, and without Serpens, it would have been infinitely harder.
Yeah, nice. Good to hear. You've done some client work as well, right?
Yeah, I actually have gotten quite a bit of client work, and it's helped paid for some of my own purchasing of additional add-ons. I had problems. But yeah, it's been fun to be able to teach other people how to do it. I've gotten paid for some of those things, and I'm getting so busy now that my client work is like I'm having to do other things. But yeah, I still have some clients that I do work with, and it's because of Serpens that I've got clientele.
That's great to hear.
Thanks
Good
again,
on you,
guys.
Blanche.
Yeah, everybody's benefiting that I've seen in the channel. I know that we have a couple people on the Discord that have got stuff on Blender Market, and like Holupsi is one of them, and I know that she was in here earlier.
Yeah, like there's one that
Quacklin
blew up.
Yeah, the Blender Market. I think Quacklin had one of her add-ons blow up on the Blender Market front page.
I don't know if it's still on the front page now.
It's not there anymore, but it is on there.
But yeah, it was here for like
Physics Dropper, yep.
a very long time, and
Elin, that's it.
It's doing almost as well as Serpens, so like after 2 months, not like 1.5 years. So
yeah, 1,000 plus sales.
And
that's pretty awesome. Yeah, Ellen, I think she was surprised because I think Finn was the one that said, "Hey, your stuff is on the Blender Market homepage." It's like, "Oh, really?"
Yeah.
So, yeah, and there's my Pomodoro add-on.
Really
that one's just I did this on the YouTube series. I don't have nearly as many sales as her, and that's okay because I just did this to post out how to make the add-on itself, and this has the Serpens 2 hold node graph in it. But we'll have to do another tutorial series like that, and maybe I'll do a hero asset again and show how to do it.
Yeah, I think Steven.
Yeah, Steven Scott got his out too. Select by.
Hey, Blanche, thanks for making tutorials too. Like, I got so frustrated with Serpens 2 the first time I tried it, and your tutorials helped so much. So, yeah, thanks.
Yeah, man. There are a lot of people who are actually making tutorials. Steven Scott's got quite a few. I know that Curtis Holt has done a couple. So I'm hoping that he'll do a Serpens 3 one as well, because he teaches a little bit differently than I do, and the more videos we have out there, the better for the community. But Corza, your experience level is getting up there, man, and you got a good voice for video. So if you want to record some too, you could do like the advanced Serpens users ones.
Yeah, I might make a couple.
Yeah, man.
Like you said, just to give people a different perspective and someone else explaining things in a different way. You got a few different sources.
Yeah, and we'll definitely put this, like, when you decide to make videos, either one of you, like, we'll put them on the documentation page so people can find them quickly.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome, guys. Well, I think I'll stop the recording, at least for my YouTube thing, and then if we want to hang out and chat a little bit more, we can, or we can just call it a day.
I'm going to bed. I'll catch you later.
Sound good. See you, Corza. When is the release planned for the official release, Joshua?
Just depends on how many bugs you'll find. I think there's a sale, a Blender Market sale starting, like, I don't know, 11th or 13th or something.
I think the 14th is the day. Oh yeah, maybe, I think it's Monday of next week or similar. Coming soon.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure, but I guess it would be good to get it out by then. But yeah, so maybe by then. But it really just depends on how many bugs come up. Like if nobody finds anything apart from the couple of things we got today, which is unlikely, then we'll have it out in a couple of days. Like the snippets still need to be finished. But yeah. So a couple of days probably.
And I know I can live without snippets for the first few weeks. I love using snippets because it makes my workflow a little bit easier. But
yeah,
if you want to release it without that, I think it's coming. It'll come in one of the updates. If you end up having a lot of bugs or things. So cool. Well, for now, I'll stop recording and we'll catch you guys on the next one.